Dragon Ball like all the fucking time.
When's the last time you tried to draw a Dragon Ball Z character?
Well, funny enough, I think 2 years ago I did like a little illustration about like Trunks and the androids.
I seen that. Yeah. That shit was super cool.
Yeah, I'm still obsessed with them. But which it's for a long time it was just like drawing Dragon Ball, like over and over again, and I think that's like where it came from. But I remember like wanting to be like an artist. I didn't know what kind of artist I wanted to be as a kid. They were like, oh, like there's like painters. I'm like, I don't want to be a painter. I thought I wanted to be like an animator because I started to. I
remember
animation.
that was something you used to talk about a lot.
Yeah, I was in animation for my first thing was like as an animator, and then I started to like think about more about like whether or not I wanted to be an animator for like a lot of other reasons. But I remember going to class. It was like the class was called like drawing for animation.
Okay.
It was with a teacher called like Ed Gutierrez. Ed Gutierrez? I think that was his name. But he sat me down and he was just kind of like, your work kind of like lends itself more, because I think there was a lot of like kids that were in animation major, but they wanted to be like more like biz dev, like where they make designs and all that stuff.
They weren't trying to do like 2D animation, like they're not trying to make the next Hercules or
no, it's not that. Like they wanted to do like kind of like you remember like when you see like concept art?
Yeah.
Like that, where like they wanted to do that. They didn't want to do like kind of like the in-betweens, the actual animating part.
Right, because when you draw on something like that, you're constantly redrawing the image for the thing to move, right?
There's like, it's like 24 frames per second, which good, so you're like drawing 24 drawings, or you can do like 12 and like you shoot it a certain way.
Okay. Oh shit, I'm learning. Okay. No, because I've always been obsessed with art in that way.
Yeah.
I've always thought it was incredible. Some of the reason why I'm like I have a hard time watching stuff now is because a lot of things seem to be made more digitally rather than hand drawn, and that shit ain't. Oh, that's super cool. I hope that's in the video. I pray that's in the video. But yeah, I find it kind of. I always thought. Oh no, I'm telling you, this is all great for visual aesthetics. You know what I mean? So you do, but what happened when you were in the animation class?
Oh well, like he was just like, I feel like your work lends itself more for like illustration, like which like almost like more of a still image type of thing, or like like even let's say like comics. And I was like, I don't know about comics. And so then like I transferred into like the illustration department or whatever. But then like I had like still a little bit of the touch from like animation.
For sure.
So all my stuff was like very like motion based.
Okay.
Or almost like felt like it was like kind of like a moment in transition. Type of thing. And it kind of worked for me.
How did your teacher at the time receive that?
Like the ones that like the illustration ones?
Yeah.
Some were like, well, it depends, because there was like a lot of there was like the younger ones who like were hella encouraging, kind of sick. They also came from like more experimental type of illustration. Right. And then there were the ones that are like kind of like that I've been there forever.
So old school kind of.
Old school, which like they care more about painting, about like the basics of painting. There's one that was kind of a dick. He was a piece of shit. He was such a piece of shit.
Why you say that?
Well, I remember which like I think this fool really thought that he was like fucking Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society. Where he would like talk about all this other like kind of like experimental stuff, but then he wanted you to paint a certain way, and it was like kind of like trying to train you. Which, to his credit, like he was like really good at what he does. Right. And which again, he was also I think trying to get the best out of me. I was not a great student at the time, so I have to like give him credit in that regard too. That was just like, as a student, I feel like I was not showing up sometimes. Right. Like as a like artistically or like kind of like work wise.
You like you'll mail it in sometimes.
Yeah, I was like mail it in, which was also like kind of like I was going through some episodes. Like mental health wise, it's always been kind of shoddy for me. And then like there was just moments where I was just like not present, not well. It was like, and it was always affecting other parts of my life. I remember like one time we had like our end of semester thing where we put all our paintings there, and then like I just told him that something kind of like horrible had happened. He was like, oh, I totally understand. And then we have like the class, and then like he goes to me and he's just like, basically he's like, this is shit. And he's like, do you even like to draw? Do you even have a sketchbook? And then, but which later on, like in illustration, there's like this, or illustration majors, like in school, whatnot. There's this thing called like what's called the Society of Illustrators. Okay. Which is like kind of like, it's the golden standard for like the old heads or whatever. Right. And then like you are supposed to like submit your work and like if you're like kind of like selected, it's like quote unquote big deal.
Okay.
And I remember I submitted some of my work, everyone did, and then we had like 3 people get awards, or 3 awards given to like to CCA.
Okay.
I went, and that was 2 of them. And I remember like I was like,
I did that. Yeah, I did that.
yeah, and then going over to like kind of like just like seeing him, like walking down the halls, and just like, oh,
You know now.
yeah, and then like I remember like I was like, hey, and he just sees me, he's like, oh,
Oh, wow.
and he just walks by, and I was like, yeah,
I did that.
I did that.
I just had a moment, and I wish
Yeah.
you would have been able to see me having a moment, because I don't question my love for the
Don't
art.
question. It's also like a thing of like, you good?
Yeah.
It's like a what's it called? It's just like yeah, I don't know. Like I don't really care about like these awards and these like kind of like this whole process or whatever. But I know you give a shit about it, and it's like, and I succeeded in the shit that you
Care about.
deem yeah,
Right.
that you deem like actually good. So it was like that little sense of like victory, but it was not like a what's it called? I don't think like for me it was like validating as like an artist, because
Right.
I don't think I really cared about it.
Right, but it's cool to know that, hey, I still operate at a high clip.
Yeah.
I'm just,
I have a little something in me.
yeah, no, I mean, you definitely have a something. I mean, I think your work is I see a lot of people, it's like sometimes when I look at the Apple shit,
Yeah.
like, you know, when they do their art stuff, or
Yeah.
that shit look like it's mimicking the style that you do.
Yeah, I guess. Which guy? I think like more recently or like the previous one.
I think more recently, or maybe in the last like 6 years or so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at 6 years, I think the last 6 years things really changed for me artistically, like work-wise.
Which is interesting, and then I would be curious to like, how was your family when you were younger? How was your family in regards to you being an artist?
It's kind of like a mixed bag.
Cause I'm always like, my mom wrote poetry and shit.
Yeah.
So like she had this thing, but like, I don't know, being black and being an artist, and then I used to dance, and then dancing turned into me getting the camera and all these different things.
I used to like that.
That was my jam. My mom didn't necessarily understand it. I don't think she gets it now. And I mean, that's not for me, it's for her. But it's like, it was very, she didn't know how to support it.
Yeah.
And I still don't think she knows how to support it, because I think her thing was more about survival. Like being an artist, you can't survive.
Yeah. I think like that's like a big thing. I think also like as like immigrating over here, there's the thing of like, you gotta overachieve.
Right.
Like my sister was like kind of like straight A's.
Right.
And I remember like even back then, like my mom was kind of like struggling in terms of just like, I don't know what to do with this kid.
Right.
Because there's a moment where like I remember she was like she was on my ass about like some like homework and stuff, and she was like, oh, this one's wrong, you got to change it. And I was like, oh, I don't want to change it. And she was like, why not? Like, you know that's not the right answer. And I was like, because if I change it, then I'll get a 90 something, and I like the number 8. So I'd rather get a B, because then I'll get an 80 something, and I like the number 8, and the B looks more like the number 8
than the other one.
Yeah,
and
she was just looking at me like, what the fuck do you mean by that shit?
But you know,
You're
I think that's
killing me.
genius though, right? To have been able to point and identify what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? At such a young age.
It's like what I want. It's not like maybe like what's like objectively like the goal,
Right.
But it's like whatever like brings me a sense of gratification. But as a kid, like that's a hard thing to even explain.
Yeah.
And I think artistically wise, like there was a moment where like I remember my mom was like, yeah, like you're very artistic, like you're always been quote unquote artistic, whatever. She was like, but at the same time, like you need to do other things. And she was like, you can have that as like your passion or whatever on the side, but like you need to like have some sort of success, because also like you can't just be another like broke ass. Like,
You know, that sounds so funny. That sounds very identical to what my mom said. And I think to the point where I hate the word hobby. When in regards to talking about the things I do, like, yeah, I work a 9 to 5, but this isn't a hobby. This is a passion, but it's also my career. Like,
this is actually me.
This is who I am in my essence.
Yeah.
Like my career, I don't enjoy it. I mean, I do enjoy it. I love working with kids. So let me be very clear. I love working with kids. But the love I have for carrying a camera, having conversations, taking photos of people, doing videos, X, Y, and Z, you can't pay me enough.
No.
I mean, you can pay me, but you can't pay me enough. You know what I mean? Because there is a certain level of joy from like when I created, like I always ask people about creative processes, my shit is like a Rubik's Cube or a puzzle. So I'm always putting different pieces together, and then I step back and I look at the bigger picture. So I enjoy that searching for all the minute pieces and it makes
not
me happy.
knowing immediately.
Yeah.
It's like that way, like it's not like improvising, but it's just like, oh, like as you figure out like this like larger image, you're also figuring out like kind of like what are the things that work for you, and what are the things that you want to put into it. And
you can constantly evolve it, and you can take a step back and be like, okay, I like that, and then take a step forward, and oh, I like that, and I'm like, I think there's this. I think being an artist, and I think you said something just a minute ago, like I like to be because I like the number 8. I think being able to be that specific about the thing that you enjoy at such a young age is powerful. It's dangerous too, because again, how our minds warp and how we move and think and operate, it's also kind of scary too.
Because you can distort your reality too. If you're like distorted in terms of like how you're even perceiving the world, then that can be dangerous for you and for others too.
Right, because the world tells you that like I remember one time when I was at Apple, I did a career experience in Cupertino. Terrible. It was the weirdest weekend I've ever had. I digress. As I'm having that weekend and all this different stuff, I remember coming back after seeing Tim Cook and after seeing the space, and something came over me, and I was like,
big donut thing?
Yeah. It was fire. And then you go into this dome where I think they should be doing live performances. That's my IP. They can take it. I remember saying, I remember sitting there though, and I was just like, why is the number 100 the idea of completion when numbers are infinite? And I remember going back to work with that. Like, I'm like, I can do so much more, because if I'm only doing this to get to 100 and numbers don't stop after 100, why is the completion rate at 100? And I think it fucked everybody up, because I was just like, nah, I think you can always go more. It's like when Robin was in Teen Titans. No, Cyborg was in Teen Titans, and he was fighting the robot from the video game. And he was like,
Atlas.
And he was like, you're at your limit. And he was like, no, I can't go past 100. He was like, why can't you? And that's kind of where my mind went, like, and I think that's only from imagination, that's only from creativity. I don't know if everybody thinks like that.
Well, I feel like if you have like the 100 mindset, then like you're only trying to reach 100 of like this state of who you are right now. And it's like, that's like not really like, let's say that you reach 100 for who you are right now, or like the goals you had for like the last like 5 years or whatever. And it's like, but then you change. Like everyone seems to go like through all these different chapters and eras. So you can't be 100 like in a bunch of small eras. You have to like then like you have to change. Like the meter has to grow or go further, just because also like you are growing as well.
I love that, because it's like, last year I may have went 100%, whereas this year I know for a fact I'm going way beyond my limits than I've ever gone. Just creatively, consistently. I think the biggest thing for me, like I create, and then sometimes I'm not consistent. So like I'll create all these pieces and all this stuff. But then it's like, then I'll start looking at it, then I'm like, I mean, this is cool, but who cares? Whereas now, what that was last year, where I could still have the creative juices and have the creative flow, now I'm gonna actually have something, and I'm going further than what I used to allow myself to be at.
Your priorities also change, like both like creatively and also just like, I don't know, life-wise.
I think you value things. I think at 30 I have a different sense of urgency now. Creatively, like it is so much more that I care to say that I didn't necessarily think I cared to say when I was 23.
No, that was it. Like I talked to my friend yesterday about it, where it was just like, it's crazy that like I'm going on 31 this year.
Me too.
She's about to hit 30. And it was the thing of like, oh, like it's weird when you think like when you're like younger, or even as like a kid or whatever, that when you're 30, you find like, oh, this is who I am permanently. But then when you reach 30, I think like then you have a little more retrospective. And then you start kind of like shifting in terms of like, oh, like this whole thing, this thing that I thought was gonna bring me gratification or like kind of validation or whatever, it didn't do anything for me. It's like now I want to do something else entirely different.
I want to do something that serves more of what I enjoy. I think I chased validation through art for so long. Because it's like art is one of those things that I know I'm good at. Like photography, videography is something I know I'm good at, right? Because it's like it's a skill. But I then also start relying on the love of the art. Like I always, and I've talked about this before. I look at my art as something separate to me.
Yeah.
So like I look at it like my photography, the visual aspect thing is a woman, and I love her, and I'm in love with her and stuff like that. But I've mistreated her. I've put her down to go pick something else up. I've not treat, you know, like if you're in a relationship and you've been in a relationship for a really long time, and I'm not saying this is how I quote my relationship with photography, and while me and photography have now, we have a really great love for each other again. There was couples therapy with my art. There was a period of time where it was just like I just relied on the skill, so I just relied on knowing what I know I can do without having to try. And that made me neglect the thing that I love the most, and it stopped giving back to me in the way that I needed to give.
Well, that's like a big thing I feel like when it comes to artists, like across mediums, where they focus on the craft. You know, they focus on the skill. But like when you focus solely on like the skill because you're trying to reach like a sense of like, oh, like as a professional or as a career or whatever, and it's like, and you just lose the love for it, you lose like a little bit of the sauce, you lose a little bit of the soul.
The soul part.
Yeah.
Where you just
like, it's no longer just, that's not really you.
And it's almost like dissociation, like you dissociate from the art too, because it's like, okay, like I would get booked for shit that I know I probably should have said no to because I just didn't want to do, and I'd get booked and shoot. I'd overshoot because it's like if I overshoot, I know I'm gonna catch something in it because I still got the skill. Whereas like now I'm way more patient, I'm way more diligent, I'm also more caring and thoughtful. Like when we take our portraits today, there's a certain level of calmness that I have to have and silence around that, but that's because I fell in love with the craft again. I know what the craft needs from me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember like we were talking about earlier in terms of like what was the, like some of the, when like you see an artist kind of like make like change, like not changes but growth, like you see him take these steps that are like, oh, you're upgrading,
you're stepping up.
I think like that usually comes with like long breaks. To like, there's a teacher I had once, I was like, hey, like you need, the time that you're not making art is just as important as the time that you are making art. Because when you're not making art, then you're also starting to like look inward, you're starting to like find again like different priorities or whatever. And I think like there's like moments I had where like in 2019, 2020, where I felt like kind of like limited at this point. It's like I was technically growing, but I also felt like I was just like growing within this persona,
one specific thing, right?
This category, which like this like box that I've already like put myself into. And I think in 2020 there was a lot of like loss. So which so there's, I remember like a pet died, a friend died, a family member died, and there was a thing of just like where I was at my lowest point in 2020, not just because of that, because of other reasons too. And so I didn't draw for a while. I just didn't have it in me. And then I think like a friend of mine, we started doing like this little series where it was just like we were just redrawing Dragon Ball panels.
I'm not mad at that at all.
It was fun, it was nice, and it was also kind of like, it's like, oh, like reconnecting
to the original thing that got you here in the first place, right?
It's just like, oh, like I was in love with this as a kid. This is like where I even started, like where you're just drawing Dragon Ball. And you're like, and you start to like also I don't know, it just comes back. I mean, sometimes it just comes back stronger.
It's like that's, I think grief reinforces purpose for the art.